Last segment, we looked at cognitive fusion, which is where we fuse with our thoughts. We believe them, we think that they're true. This episode, we're going to look at cognitive defusion. This is where we now understand that our thoughts are not true. We start to have much more awareness and control over what we do and how we relate to our thoughts. Diffusion really is relating to your thoughts in a new way so that they have much less impact and influence over you. As you learn to diffuse the painful and unpleasant thoughts, they start to lose their ability to frighten you, to disturb you, to depress you. And as you learn to diffuse these unhelpful thoughts, such as self-limiting beliefs, which we'll get into again a later segment, and self-criticism, they will have much less influence over your behavior and over your life. You'll start to find that your life starts to brighten up considerably when you diffuse from your thoughts. Let's look at a fairly simple example of cognitive fusion and how to implement cognitive defusion. A very common thought which most people have is that this person doesn't like me, this or that person doesn't like me. Now, when you have that thought, you utterly believe it. When we're in a state of cognitive defusion, that changes. And here's a little trick, here's a little tip. What I want you to do is I want you to think of a person who you think hates you, that you've had this thought about before. This person hates me. It might not be as strong as hate, but let's use hate as an example right now. Think the thought, this person hates me. There's probably that sense that you really believe that that person hates you. And here's the tip. What I want you to do now is I want you to place in front of that thought the phrase, I'm having the thought that this person hates me. So say this to yourself, I'm having the thought that this person hates me. How does that feel to you now? Does that lessen the feeling that the person actually hates you? Hopefully it does. And by putting that little phrase, I'm having the thought that, it allows us to really understand that it is just a thought. It's not the truth. What happened for you? Did you find that there was more distance between you and the thought? It wasn't as strong as it was before you put the phrase, I'm having the thought that in front of it. Now let's pick another thought, one that maybe occurs to you more often and that does bother you or upsets you when you have the thought. Now hold that thought in your mind and believe it as much as you can. Focus on it for several seconds. Notice how it affects you. It might be about a friend, a colleague, something that you do, might be about a partner, a family member. Have that thought. It's going to be a more negative thought about them. Really focus on that. How are you affected by that at the moment? Now, with that thought, insert in front of it, I'm having the thought that. Insert that in front of that thought now. I'm having the thought that da 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 da, whatever it is that you're thinking. Now run that thought through again, this time continually attaching the phrase, I'm having the thought that, blah, blah, blah. I'm having the thought that about the person. How is that working for you? What are you noticing that's happening? Is there more distance between you and the thought and believing the thought, thinking that it's true? Hopefully there is. Now remember, you can't learn to ride a bike just by reading about it. You can't learn about cooking just by reading about it. You actually have to do it. You have to get on the bike. You have to get into the kitchen and start cooking. Likewise, you're not going to get much out of this if you just listen to what we are saying here. You need to put these things into practice. You need to have awareness and take this on board as a new skill. So if you haven't actually done the exercise which we just went through, please go back and do it now. So what happened? You probably found out that inserting the phrase, I'm having the thought that, instantly gave you some distance from the actual thought itself. It helped you to step back and observe it from a distance. If you didn't notice any difference, try it again with another thought. You can use this technique with any unpleasant thought. For instance, if your mind says, life sucks, then simply acknowledge that it's a thought. So you say, I'm having the thought that life sucks. If your mind says, I'll never get over this, then simply acknowledge the thought by saying, I'm having the thought that I'll never get over this. If your mind says, I look fat in this, whatever it is that you're wearing, then simply acknowledge it as, I'm having the thought that I'm looking fat in this. It's not true. So remember, using this phrase makes you aware of the process of thinking. It means that you're less likely to take your thoughts literally, less likely to take them seriously. Instead, you can step back and see those thoughts for what they are, merely words passing through your head, nothing more, nothing less. This is cognitive defusion. I hope this works for you, and I hope you put this into practice from now on, so that wherever you are and you start getting these negative thoughts or feelings, remember, I'm having the thought that, I'm having the thought that. And maybe you'll see it in others as well. They'll say something negative, and I'm not suggesting that you go out and tell them immediately to say, I'm having the thought that. It's probably not going to work. They're not in a state of mind to receive it. But hey, this is just my thought. So I'm just having the thought that they may not be ready to receive it. See how easy it is to put in action straight away. So as long as it's done, I think, with that intent to help, it'll be received well. See, just change my thought just like that. That's how easy it is. So until next time, please remember to practice the things you find and learn about here so that you can thrive in life rather than merely survive.